Hello, hello. Welcome to Our Daily Brad, episode 26 on April 29th of 2024. Let me just confirm that. Is it the 29th? I think it's the 29th. Yes. And so I just want to do a quick overview of the mayor's prayer breakfast, which was here in Prince George Saturday morning from 8 a.m. to about 10:30 a.m. It was really, really good. Poncho Murguia was the keynote speaker invited by Gary Clark of the Prince George Peacemakers. And he is a pastor from the city of Juarez, Mexico. We invited him because he has authority to speak to sort of how to speak to a city, how to pray and intercede for a city when all hope seems lost. Juarez, Mexico is a city on the border between Mexico and Texas, I believe, of about 1.5 million people. Back in 2007, they had their first sort of machine gun murder. And within 1 year, they had achieved worldwide recognition as the murder capital of the world. And they achieved that title, that infamous title, 3 years in a row. It was so bad. And by the way, this is all due to gang violence, cartels, and drug trade and all that kind of thing. It was so bad, the way they calculate it, that it was 229 murders per 100,000 people per month. I haven't done the math, but if you have a population of 1.5 million, that's a crazy amount of murders. 300,000 people of that city left town because they were in so much fear. You had to have bodyguards. People were afraid to go to school, afraid to go shopping, afraid to leave their homes. Well, through a series of events, the Lord used him and other pastors in that city to achieve breakthrough. And it was all spiritual. It was miracle after miracle after miracle. I'm trying to think of kind of the highlights of the message. Basically, the Lord used him to establish relationships with other pastors of other denominations. And they had all their differences, but they made a concerted effort to come together in unity as much as possible. They established friendships. And finally, some of the main pastors of that city got together and they said, this is so bad. We need to... So they basically met in a hotel, not an expensive hotel, but a hotel conference room. And they said, we're going to lock this door and we're going to figure this out together. And in the 2 or 3 hours they spent together, I think it was 2.5 hours, they unanimously finally agreed that the problem was not the Mexican drug cartels. The problem was not the government. The problem was not the people or the drug trade or anything, or the violence or the murder. The problem was them. And they realized that they had failed to take authority and dominion over their city, to love their city, to do what Jesus would have wanted them to do, to take action, to intercede, to pray, to show love for their city. And amazingly, the Lord used that and kickstarted that whole thing to implement change, and miracles started happening. At one point, one of the ministers, I don't remember which minister, but I think he was in charge of either the military or defense or public safety or something like that. Well, of course, the cartels, as soon as they receive any hint of opposition, they put a hit out on you in that city back then. And sure enough, one day, 2 school buses came and blocked his access down the road he was traveling on. A bunch of guys with machine guns got out and started peppering his car with machine gun fire. And suddenly he watched as they all looked around and saw something that absolutely terrified them. As a man, they left and they never bothered him again. And that is to say, they left. And he didn't know what they saw, but it was either God himself or it was an angel. It seems clear to me. He got out and he could see his car peppered with bullet holes. He could see where the bullet holes had gone through his seat, and he himself was unscathed. It was a miracle. There was no way for that to happen unless God intervened. And, a whole bunch of media attention came out of this, and they did reports. Some of them couldn't report it because it was to do with God. It was a miracle. They said, no, sorry, we're not going to report on this. And some of them did. And, the story just unfolds. But basically, he came to Prince George, and he had a message for us. He said, you guys, we got to start stopping to focus on our own stories. And we got to start focusing on his story. The kingdom. Instead of our own kingdoms, we got to start building his kingdom. And he also said that we got to start loving each other, and we got to start working together, and we got to start loving our city. And that was the high point. That was the peak of the violence. And from then on, it went down and down and down and down. It was a breakthrough. One of the things he did as well was he spoke to his city, and he decreed and declared victory over the darkness, basically. The establishment of God and the defeat of the enemy, the defeat of evil and murder and all that kind of stuff that comes with it. And until today, there are no kidnappings. There used to be kidnappings of 20 per day, but now there's none. There used to be thousands of murders every year, and now there's maybe 10 in a city of 1.5 million. Well, that's a huge, huge night and day difference. So the Lord used him to effectuate a great change when all hope seemed lost. And it was a miracle. It was a spiritual victory. So Prince George, we live in a time when we have this hot button issue with moccasin flats, drug addiction, homelessness. It seems like whatever we do, it just makes it worse. We have a system that perpetuates the problem. We have a system that encourages competition instead of cooperation between organizations by, fighting for the same pot of money. We have a system where the government doesn't know what to do. Their hands are tied. Seems like it anyway. But they are doing some things because we've been able to provoke thought and discussion and decision making as a society. And so we begin to see change. We begin to see action being taken. Now, there's one, we provide housing for these people. That's only part of the problem. The other part is addiction, mental health, wellness. They need to be, some of them need interventions. We don't have hardly any rehab facilities. Some of them need hope. How do we give hope? Some of them need advocacy. How do we do that as a society? So it was really, really interesting and encouraging to see, something like 300 people show up to the mayor's prayer breakfast. People from faith walks, people from secular walks, businessmen around the city, politicians. I think it was the mayor of Valemont that came, the mayor of Quesnel that came. And there were city councilors present from Prince George, as well as the mayor, obviously. The mayor himself insisted on introducing Poncho Murguia. And that was very encouraging to see. So I just want to encourage you, City of Prince George, if they can do it, yes, their situation was way worse than ours. But ours is on that path. If we don't do something about it, that's where we're headed. Let's do something. Let's do everything we can to prevent that from happening. Just want to encourage you, people of Prince George. Hope is not lost. What do we have to do to rise up to make this change? That was one of the challenges he gave us. This was an event. Are we just going to go home and check event done? Or are we going to be provoked to love our city and make changes? What can we do to make a change? What can we do within 24 hours of this weekend to help make changes in our towns and our cities? What can we do to love our city and invite love, mercy, faith, hope, light, love? So I leave you with that. Be encouraged, City of Prince George. Amen.